Welcome to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm host Lanasha Pawadi. Later in the show, I'll chat with children's author Deidre Havreloc. Kim Etsitty is a Diné science teacher at Navajo Pine High School and has been selected to participate this fall as part of a deep ocean exploration team on board the exploration vessel Nautilus. She will have the opportunity to connect with learners online across New Mexico and the Navajo Nation. Hello, Kim, and welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you for having me, Lanasha.
Absolutely. And before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Let's go ahead and introduce myself. She'e Kimetsiri Yaneshia Todachitni Nishle Toheglini Bashichi Keani Dashiche Nakai Det Nationale. And that way I'm a Navajo woman. I am originally from Chinle, Arizona. That's where I started my education as far as kindergarten, and then I graduated from Chinle High School. And right now I'm currently an educator in New Mexico.
Wow, that's awesome. And tell us about your teaching experience.
Yeah, so I'm currently an educator with Gallup-McKinley County Schools out in Navajo Pine High School. And at the same time, I'm a curriculum writer with the Los Alamos National Laboratories out in Espanola, New Mexico. I have been a teacher for over a decade. The students that I served range from second grade to now 12th grade. The majority of my students that I serve are coming from the Diné background. The communities that I serve, it's really beautiful here. The students come from landforms of 7,000 feet along, the red rocks and the Navajo volcanic field. So currently, right now I am teaching physics and biology at a high school level.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. And do you have a favorite subject that you teach?
Yes, I really enjoy science in general, but to be more specific as far as the branch, I think my favorite would be Earth and Space Science. Although sometimes it kind of breaks my heart. Some Earth and Space Science is kind of usually ignored at high school level, so they usually just kind of sprinkle it throughout the different branches. But yeah, overall, I really love astronomy.
Oh, wow. And we also understand that you have been chosen for the Ocean Exploration Trust 2024 Science Communication Fellow. Congratulations. Can you tell us what is a Communication Ocean Exploration Trust Science Communication Fellow?
Yeah, that's correct. So I was just recently chosen. So my job, or I guess what a communication fellow is it's a scientist, it could be a writer, journalist, but most importantly, our job would be to communicate the important scientific findings to the public in a way that is easy for the public to understand, highlighting the key concepts that have been discovered, and an easy way to understand it.
Oh, okay. And as being a fellow, do you get to do anything special?
Yeah, so as a fellow, I get to explore the areas of the ocean that have never been discovered before or been explored before. We'll be seeking out new discoveries in the field of geology, biology, maritime history, archaeology, and even chemistry. One thing that is special about this fellowship is I'm kind of geeking out about would be sailing with the world's famous ocean explorer, Bob Ballard.
Oh, wow. I bet that is going to be really exciting, especially once you kind of start that journey. Can you tell us about the OET exploration vessel and Nautilus and what you'll be doing?
Yeah, of course. The OET exploration, the EV Nautilus, consists about 40 members on board, and what they do is they kind of send out on a crew about maybe 7 months at a time. And right now they're off season, and they'll start their new season in May, at the end of May. But most importantly, I think their biggest goal is to explore the ocean and seek out new discoveries. And they do this through remotely operated vehicles. One important ROV would be Hercules, and this is a rover that, or I guess not a rover, an ROV. His job would be to do all the exploration underneath the sea, and this can travel about, let's say, 4,000 meters deep. And throughout this expedition, they'll just kind of be mapped. They have different missions. So right now, the mission that I'm assigned to would be in the fall time, and I'll be out and traveling to one of the most, I guess you can say, ambitious conservation efforts on Earth, which is the Palau National Marine Sanctuary. Right now, they know that the Palau National Marine Sanctuary is like a region where it hosts rich, diverse marine resources, but there's still a lot of data that's not available yet, so that's kind of going to be a cool part about that. And for me, on board, I'll be like working 9 to 10 hour shifts a day, and majority of my time would be working inside the control van with the crew. And the crew could be like the lead scientist, the watch lead, or even the pilot navigator.
Oh, wow, that's so exciting, and it's such an amazing opportunity that you'll be able to kind of take advantage of. Kim, what influenced or encouraged you to join?
I think my biggest influence was, or is, the fact that growing up, and here's one thing, is that I'm a product of reservation public education and reservation school public education, I guess. And, there was a lot of disconnect in growing up in classrooms, science classrooms, as far as connecting culture and the science concepts to me. And if anything, growing up and learning and reflecting about those experiences, it didn't make me I loved science, but it didn't make me want to pursue science. And I think me going into this and also being a teacher at the same time is very unique and special, because I get to share this experience with my students, and they get to see me on the screen and know that could be something they can relate to. And because I tell stories a lot, and having them relate to these kinds of stories growing up on the reservation, hopefully that kind of inspires them to move towards a science field.
Oh, yes. And you mentioned that your students would be kind of following you during this journey. How will they be able to follow along while you're on the vessel? Will they be able to participate in your experience virtually?
There's live commentary that will be available. Right now, it's not available on the website, but if you check back, or the public can check back in May, maybe like May, at the end of May, and check back on the website, classrooms all over the world can start scheduling, and that way they can, and the interactions will be conducted through Zoom or Google Meet. So that will be available to them. And the good thing about technology now that we live in this fast-moving world is that they can keep up and through social media, and the Nautilus is really good with their social media, and they have everything. So they have like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and all of that. So if anything, I'll probably encourage my students to really follow along through that way also.
Oh, wow. I can't believe that they'll be able to kind of share that experience with you. And Kim, have you always loved the sea? Is this going to be your first time going into the ocean?
Yeah, I always loved the sea. For me, I think I'm just always a curious natural learner, and anything that has to do with our landforms, rocks, all of that. Like I truly love. And being here on the desert, it's kind of funny. My family always tease me. They're just like, how we're living in the desert, but I'm going to be out in the ocean kind of thing. And so one thing is that when I have a niece who lives in Seattle, and anytime we go out there, we try to get to, hang out on the shore kind of thing and go whale watching. So that's one thing I really like.
Oh, wow. And you mentioned that when you do go on your expedition, you were going to be going to Palau. Can you tell us where that's at?
Yeah, Palau is going to be near the Philippines, kind of right at the equator. That's where it's kind of going more north of the Philippines.
And will you be out in the middle of the ocean or kind of near the Philippines?
Oh, so I'll be. This is kind of the information that is still I'm kind of unsure about, but I know for sure that I'll be out like onshore for like 3 to 4 weeks, and this would be like not around. It's just ocean. So that's where I'll be at.
Oh, wow. That is so awesome. And I know they will be doing like a live commentary. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the live commentary, the interaction, they usually run about 30 minutes. So once the classroom once they sign up through the nautiluslive.org website, the commentary will kind of go through for about 30 minutes. It's really neat. It's a Q&A session that enables like live dialogue in real time, and it's free and it's available to all classrooms and community. So one thing that I know that I will be responsible for is connecting at least maybe 10 to 15 classrooms while I'm on board. So I'm looking forward to that because I'll be connecting with my school for sure, and over the few months, I'm going to go ahead and reach out to different communities and even higher institutions where I can go and do presentations while I'm bored.
Oh, wow. That is so amazing. And what do you hope to get out of this experience?
One thing would be to share with my community back home here on the reservation, Navajo Nation, and communicate the urgency of making environmental changes. And I always wonder why, I think if anything, the Navajo Nation has the ability to become plastic free and, ban all of these different products that are bad for our environment, like styrofoam. And I kind of want to explain that while I'm doing and over the few months while I'm getting the community pumped up for my expedition. And then also while I'm on shore and then getting more the latest research of the ocean, and then also bringing that back and then sharing it again. And I think trying to tackle these issues that's on the Navajo Nation, and it doesn't really have to be ocean related. It could just be addressing environmental concerns in general, such as like overgrazing, erosion, illegal trash dumping, any of that, just to get some type of wake up or information out like that to get it moving. And then also I think professionally or personally would be just to get a deeper understanding for myself and know my strengths and weakness as a future leader, because I'm also in grad school, and so that's one of my goals is to become a principal and share that and share the importance, or I guess how important science is and can be.
How would you incorporate what you've learned into your classroom?
This is a good question. This is a question that I keep coming back to. As a Diné, I want to incorporate a lot of the cultural teachings that relate to our sacred element of water. And water is such a sacred element to everybody, to all humankind. So living in the desert can be hard when it comes to our water resources. So I want to embrace the importance of our ocean. I want to do this by tying in the creation stories and cultural stories. So, for example, we have our deity, Yosquesta, which means white shell woman. And as a Navajo, you look around and you like ask, like, white shell, like, where did that come from? And it's like, it came from the ocean. So trying to connect those stories, I feel like that's something that can be done when I bring it back into the classroom.
Do you think STEM or STEAM are important, and do you think this will motivate your students into learning more about the ocean?
Yeah, as a science teacher, I feel like STEAM is important. The reason I think it's important is because it allows the students to utilize their creative thinking process to carry out different investigations. And this is so important, especially for the future of our planet. As a hopeful teacher, I say yes, that it will motivate them to learn more about the ocean, but I know for sure that it will spark some type of curiosity, and I know they'll have questions about the vast, mysterious wonders of the sea. And if anything, one of my biggest goal as a teacher would, I do hope that all of them become scientists. But realistically, if anything, I just want them to see themselves as a participant of nature and, be respectful of that.
And what are the biggest challenges you think your students are facing now?
Speaking specifically for my student here, I have seen them battle through mental health issues such as depression or anxiety, while also trying to balance their academics and home life responsibilities. But aside from, battling their mental health issues, they face a lot of different challenges such as language barriers, cultural stereotypes, and even social acceptance, whether it be online or just in person. But I think despite of all their challenges, I have seen my students, they adapt and they want to learn and they want to improve in their schooling, and even just like the smallest or the basic of just being a better human being. I think many of my students bring so much knowledge in the classroom. It's so cool and amazing to see all these wonderful things that they can do. And so I try to highlight that and try to use that to help them tackle these everyday monsters.
And what advice would you give to the youth or anybody who is interested in going into a career in education or science?
My biggest message would be, it could be my past students, current students, or future students, or any students on the Navajo Nation and other reservations or throughout the world. I think one thing that I really want them to embrace is that each of them have a gift, and whether that be art, math, science, talking, making jokes, but I want them to see and recognize that gift and nurture it, because there's no one else that has their thinking process, and that's important. That's important to share throughout the world, and they should be very proud of that.
Oh, yes. And Kim, kind of going back to when you first got into this, being selected to be a part of the Communications Fellow, do you know how many other applicants there were that you were kind of chosen out of?
From what I read and what they shared was that this is a competitive application process because it's open throughout the whole world. And from my understanding, I believe there was over 100 applicants.
Oh, wow. That is so amazing how you were able to kind of be selected out of those group of people. And did we talk about kind of what kind of sparked your interest to even apply for this expedition?
It started back in December. Back in December, I was also fortunate to be part of a program, or I guess you could call it a training through NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory out in Pasadena, California. I went to this workshop out there, and from there was these scientists that came from or that worked at NASA, and they were presenting on their latest discoveries with their rover called Brewy. Brewy is a little machine that can travel upside down underneath like ice, and their mission is to travel to Europa and study the surface there. And there was a scientist there, and he said, yeah, there's missions and expeditions that go out every year through the Nautilus, and yeah, they told me, they encouraged me to apply, and I was like, this is amazing. So I went ahead and I went for it.
And when you mention Europa, is that the moon of Jupiter?
Yeah, that's correct.
Kim, do you know if you are the first Indigenous woman or Navajo woman to kind of take advantage of this kind of expedition?
I am not 100% sure. I can ask, though.
Oh, yeah, because I don't think I've ever heard of anybody else kind of doing this experience, and I know you are probably pretty excited for this opportunity, and everyone in your community are just so excited to kind of just see someone like us kind of be a part of that great experience. Yeah,
it's pretty exciting.
Is it a scary feeling?
When I really think about it, because they sent me a lot of pictures and different things on what to expect, and a part of me was like, okay, should I really go through this? But then there was a part where they sent me a guidebook, and one of the activities on the guidebook said, make sure you're an active participant when watching the sunsets. And I was like, that was like something I was just like, wow, I can't wait for that kind of thing. So it kind of just like made everything else disappear. So I was like, I want to do this.
Wow, that's so awesome. I can't wait to kind of follow along on your journey and try to be a part of that live commentary, so that way we can all kind of see your experience and try to experience that with you as well virtually. Can you let us know, or let our listeners know, where they can go to find more information about your event and how they can contact you if they have further questions?
Okay, so to schedule the live commentary with your classrooms, you can go to nautiluslive.org, and that's NAUTILIUS live.org, and that will be available after May 25th. And further questions, you can always email me at Kim, K-I-M, Etsitty, E-T-S-I-T-T-Y @gmail.com.
Perfect. I would like to thank you, Kim, for coming on air with us today to tell us about your journey on your education career and also sharing this amazing journey. And congratulations on being selected to be a part of this communications fellowship. And we are excited to watch your live commentary as well. And good luck.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Yehe, and for allowing me to share this on my behalf and the Nautilus Live.
Coming up on Native Talk Arizona, I'll chat with children's author Deidre Havreloc. Support for KRDP 90.7 FM comes in part from Native Health, with 2 locations in Phoenix, 4041 North Central Avenue, Building C, near the corner of Central Avenue and Indian School Road, and at 2423 West Dunlap Avenue. Native Health is also located in Mesa at 777 West Southern Avenue, near the corner of Southern Avenue and Extension Road. Native Health provides primary medical, dental, behavioral health, WIC, and wellness services for the urban Native American community. For more information, call 602-279-5262 or visit our webpage at nativehealthphoenix.org. Welcome back to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm host Lanasha Pawadi. Deidre Havreloc is a children's author whose book Buffalo Wild we have enjoyed reading at Native Health's early learning programs. Hello, Deidre, and welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your Indigenous background and journey?
Sure. My name's Deidre Daily Havreloc. That's my full name. I currently live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and that's Treaty 6 territory in Canada. I was originally born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta. That's about 5 hours from here, still Treaty 6 territory. I was raised in Edmonton with my mom, my dad, my one brother, so we had a small family. My mom is Cree, my dad is Irish, so my mom's family is a large Cree family. So I grew up with my Cree grandparents, Nellie Makokis Carlson. She is from Saddle Lake First Nation, and my grandfather, Elmer Carlson, is from Kahiwan. And I grew up in this wonderful, large family, all these aunties and uncles, and my grandparents both spoke Cree. They both went to residential school. And but we lived in the city, and that is because grandfather, Elmer Carlson, had actually lost his Indian status because his father was Norwegian. So we don't actually have much information on his father. I never met him. He had little contact with his father. But because he had a Norwegian father under the Indian Act in Canada, he was not considered status. He was considered Norwegian. So when my grandmother married him, she lost her status as she was now considered Norwegian, and they were forced to leave their reserve where they were on Saddle Lake at that time. And so they came to Edmonton and they raised their family there. And my grandmother was a very outspoken woman, and she decided to fight against the Canadian government to get her Indian status back. And so she and a bunch of other friends, they joined together and they formed Indian Rights for Indian Women. And they battled against the Canadian government for about 20 years. They lobbied the government for 20 years to change the Indian Act so that Indian women could also transfer their Indian status to their children. Now, what's interesting about this is that, we have these strange laws where only men are allowed to pass down status. And, under the Indian Act, if a Native man who has status marries a non-Indigenous woman, that woman became status Indian. So only the men could pass down status, and that's because it all relates back to Christianity. So a lot of our laws are based on how Christian theology works, and with Christian theology, there is an understanding that the man is made in the direct image of God, and therefore he has full personhood. Whereas the female is kind of an offshoot of the man, and she is under his authority. So when you have that as an underlying belief, then laws get created on that. And of course, it was advantageous for the Canadian government to be able to delete women and their children from getting their treaty rights, because it was a way to save money. So anyways, that's the world I grew up in. I had a large Cree extended family and a very vocal grandmother who fought for Indian women's rights.
Oh, wow, that is amazing. And kind of going into how you kind of got into writing children's books, I know you are an author and a blogger. Can you tell us more about these activities?
Sure. I write primarily children's books. So I write picture books, I write middle grade, I write graphic novels, and I write scripts for television, for children's television. And I also blog, and I blog on women as a direct image of God. So I have, because of my grandmother, and I spent quite a number of years in the Christian church, I realized that, there was a lot of very bad theology around how men viewed women. So, my blog a lot of it is about seeing women as an image of God.
And Deidre, can you tell us how you got started in writing?
Sure, that was a long time ago. And really, I wanted to be an actress when I was little. And my grandmother got me into a movie where, I was just in the background, but I just loved the atmosphere, and I wanted to become an actress. And so I took acting lessons and drama and all that kind of thing. And, I don't really know, when I started writing, but I had an English teacher who told me I was a good writer and I should become an author, and I thought she was crazy because I didn't think I was a good writer. I just found it hard to make a sentence, since I didn't understand. I thought she was crazy. And but yeah, eventually I didn't become an actress, and I thought, yeah, maybe I should be writing pictures. I wanted to be a children's author right off the bat. That's the first thing I started writing. And I was probably about 24 when I started thinking, okay, I'm going to become a children's picture book author. So that was a long time ago.
And what drives or motivates you in your career?
I would say two things: how we view women and spirituality. So those two things really, you'll see those two things throughout a lot of what I do. I mean, I do other projects too. You know, sometimes people will ask me to write something and I'll be, yeah, that's a wonderful idea, let's do it. But for me, when I write something that's personal to me, it's usually about women and spirituality.
And how has your cultural identity kind of shaped who you are today?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can see, having the grandmother that I had and that experience growing up. My grandmother took me with her to Parliament to discuss the Bill C-31 when I was only 15, and that was a huge, moment for me, even though at the time I didn't completely understand it. But how we view women was very, very in my eyesight from a young age. And so that only, that kind of deepened over the ages until now. I mean, I have a book coming out that's nonfiction for adults, and it's called Eve Restored. And hopefully it'll be out in a couple years. But, that's my heart, is to see, particularly, I know it comes from a Christian perspective, but I see such problems in the theology of how we treat women in Christianity that I think that needs to be, corrected. And I'm willing to do it. So that's what motivates me.
And what do you hope your children's book would do to kids? Would you hope that they encourage children to read, to be proud of their heritage or connect to their heritage?
Yeah, I always think, why did I start with picture books? And I think part of it is because growing up, I never had a book with Indigenous. There just were no books with Indigenous characters in them at all. And my mom used to complain that there were no history books about Indigenous history. And so I think the picture book writing is primarily coming from my inner child, wishing that I had that and having that joy. So a lot of my picture books are joy-driven, celebration and joy, just so that, kids can see themselves in the pictures, kids can get a little bit of history, kids can get a little bit of what the future could look like, So joy is a big thing in writing the picture books. And what I love about writing picture books is your audience is always a child and an adult. You always have the two reading the picture book, and that's exciting to me.
And can you tell us some of the children's books you've written?
Yes, my first one is called Buffalo Wild, and it's a nighttime adventure about a little boy who calls back the buffalo. And then I have Why We Dance, a story of hope and healing about jingle dress dancing. And I have a book called Indigenous Ingenuity, which is a middle grade book. And it is about a celebration of traditional North American knowledge, and I co-wrote that with Edward Kay. And I have a book coming out in September called Why We Dance, about female drummers, which is another topic that's close to my heart. And then I have a book coming out about bison, how bison helped create the Great Plains. And I have a graphic novel about my grandmother coming out down the road, a few years down the road.
Oh, wow. That is so amazing. And Deidre, do you have a favorite literature genre?
I do. it'll probably shock you, but my favorite is Gothic. I love reading Gothic books, and I love memoir. So I read a lot, and I love reading memoir, and I have a soft spot for a Gothic romance.
Which one?
I'll give you my favorite. My favorite book is not a Gothic romance, but it's Gothic, and it's by Shirley Jackson. So if anybody's familiar with Shirley Jackson, she is not Indigenous, but she has a book called We Have Always Lived in the Castle. One of my favorites. I love rereading it.
Can you tell us more about that book?
It's just like it's a light, scary little book. If anybody knows Gothic, you're looking at castles, you're looking at women stuck in patriarchal darkness, you're looking at I just love the way Gothic has like a mood, a gloomy mood.
And Deidre, kind of going back to some of the books that you've written, I know you mentioned one of your book was about your grandmother. Can you tell us more about about that book?
So it's a graphic novel about Nellie Makokis Carlson and her fight to restore treaty rights to First Nations women who had lost their treaty rights due to marrying non-Indigenous or non-status men. And it won't be out for probably 2 years. So it's written. It just has because it's a graphic novel. There's a lot of art. There's a lot involved with it.
Oh,
so hopefully you'll hear about it in 2 years.
Oh, wow. And can you give us kind of like a backstory on some of your books, on kind of like what inspired you to write those books? For example, the book that you have coming out, Why We Dance.
Right. Why We Dance came out in February, so it's in the stores now. And I wrote that one during COVID. I was working on another book during COVID, and I was alone. My husband was working out of the country, and we were separated. And so I was watching a lot of the Jingle Dress Dancers while I was on my computer, and I just thought it was so beautiful. And then I started Googling, like, why are they dancing? What does this mean? I didn't know. I didn't have the history of the Jingle Dress Dance. And so then I found out that 2019 was the 100-year anniversary of the Jingle Dress, of when it first came through a dream. And it was more than likely brought about because of the influenza pandemic of 1918. So there was a professor who studied it and linked it back to 1918. And so there was a museum that was having a 100-year anniversary. I toured the museum through Zoom. I was just fascinated by it. And then I was fascinated on a spiritual level about prayer, how they were dancing for prayer, as prayer. Like the dance is the prayer, right? And I just found that just intriguing from a spiritual perspective. And I think I had been thinking of prayer, being in the Christian community for too long, that prayer to me was just words, right? And so really Creator took me on a little journey to rediscover dance as prayer. And yeah, that was just a real special book for me.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And kind of talking about how you said that you started researching before about the dances and then writing the book. So how long is the process of writing a children's book when you first get the inspiration of writing another one? Do you first think of what subject or genre that you want to write in?
Yeah, it depends on each book is different. So if we go to Buffalo Wild, which was my first book, I wrote that a long time ago. I wrote that probably in 2008. And I wrote it because I had a vision of all these buffalo like coming down from the sky. Like I was just daydreaming, and all of a sudden I saw all these buffalo coming down from the sky, and I was like, oh my goodness, the buffalo are coming home. And I said that in my spirit, and I was like, what does that mean, right? And I thought, I need to write this thought out. So I wrote a short story called, it was Buffalo Wild, but it was like 1,200 words. It was a short story. And I wrote it, and I put it away in my desk, and it sat there for numerous years. And in 2016, I took it out, and I thought, by then, I had written, the journey to becoming a writer is a long one. And in 2016, I was like, I'm going to really put my foot down and become a children's author. So I pulled out my first book, which is Buffalo Wild, and I edited it until, finally it sold in 2019. So from 2016 to 2019, I was editing Buffalo Wild from a 1,200 word short story to a 500 word picture book. So that process took a long time, and it taught me a lot about the structure of picture books. And so really that was my learning journey, writing that one. And then after that one sold, the doors just opened one after the other.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's amazing. And why do you think it's important to kind of encourage the youth to read and write?
Oh, I think when we think about writing in school, we think about the 3-point essay. The paragraph, the 3 points of the closing paragraph. I hated that. Oh man, did I hate writing essays. And I probably think that that's what made me go, I'm not going to be. Why would my English teacher think I wanted to be a writer if writing a structured essay is the way to go? But now I understand writing is, for me, it's communicating. It's the way I communicate the best. And writing can be done whether you do it in a journal. You're looking at your thoughts. You're thinking, who am I? What makes me me? What matters to me? And whether you're writing that in a journal or a picture book or an essay, it doesn't matter. It's a way to really communicate yourself, who you are, and having enough value in yourself and your own point of view to the point that you want to communicate that to other people. I think that's a huge step.
And Deidre, what advice do you have for the youth thinking about being a writer?
I would say make sure you read a lot. Read all kinds of books. Don't stick to one. Read all kinds of genres. And practice writing. I mean, it doesn't have to be the essay. It can be a poem. It can be a short story. It can be a picture book. It can be just anything. Just practice getting your feelings. Writing is really, you're writing about feelings. Getting them down on paper. Get a little journal. I have a dream. I've been writing dreams down for years, so I have a lot of journals where they're dreams. And, dreams speak to me. I've been doing that for years, and I mean, it's invaluable. So all those writing journeys, they're important. Do writing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to edit it. As a writer, you're just practicing, and you just keep moving forward one step at a time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to be an author immediately. Just practice your art.
And Deidre, you mentioned, we talked about how you've written different scripts and novels and the graphic as well. Is there any other genres that you want to go into or to write?
Well, think back, I started with picture books, and from picture books I moved to memoir, studied memoir. From memoir I moved to screenwriting, studied screenwriting. Then I moved to theology, Christian theology. I did a lot of studying of Christian theology, and then I went back to picture books, became published. So I would like to do memoir. I have started a memoir. I have not finished it. And so hopefully, that's kind of my next move, is to finish my personal memoir. I don't know when that will be. It's a hard book.
And finally, how can our listeners find more information about your writing, and how can they contact you?
They can go to my website. It's deidrehavreloc.com, DeidreHavrelock.com. And you can join my newsletter, sign up, follow me, And I'll keep you up to date on what's coming out. All my books are listed on my website. And yeah, my email is there under contact, I do believe. You could send me an email at deidrehavreloc@gmail.com.
Perfect. I would like to thank you, Deidre, for taking time out to talk to us today to tell us about your amazing journey on the process of you writing all these amazing children's books and also giving us a glimpse of the other genres that you have been taken part of.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such an honor to be invited.
Thank you for listening to Native Talk Arizona, supported by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. Audio editing by Javier Quiroga, and the executive producer is Susan Levy. And I'm host Lanasha Puwadi. We hope you tune in again next week. If you have any questions, please email us at nativetalkaz@radiophoenix.org.